it's ridiculous because I see when I worked in this unit, I remember the Red Cross was so angry every time I don't know if there was, we were coordinating buses of Palestinians coming from Gaza and the West Bank into Israel to see their families. Because we are obligated by the international law and the Geneva Convention to facilitate visits of families to if a terrorist was being captured from Gaza and is held in Israel, we need to make sure that the family gets to see them. And of course, all the other conditions that Israel, I mean, the meals in the Israeli prisons are amazing. Not that I wish anyone would be in prison, but it's really, the conditions are amazing. Right? Medicine, access to higher education. They finish a PhD in prison, a lot of those Palestinian convicted terrorists. But we had to facilitate those
Probably
visits.
nicer than some of the hotels.
I mean,
yes. I mean, Israel, the pillows, and even at the King David, the pillows are rough.
They could be doing better.
Squeegees. I mean, come on. You could do better than that.
Yeah, but the Red Cross would be so...
And these are like Israeli Arab citizens in Israel who have family? Who are they visiting?
Palestinians from Gaza or the West Bank that have family members held in
Israeli prison.
Yeah.
Oh, so they get So Palestinians in Gaza have visitation rights to Israeli... to terrorists that were captured in Israel. They get visitation rights.
Israel has obligation to facilitate it according to the Second Geneva Convention, and it's executing it amazingly. I don't think in any other country in the world this has been done this way, but Israel is making sure that it's happening. And I remember speaking to the International Red Cross, to my colleagues that I was working with, and they would get furious if there was 5 minutes delay in the buses, or if the Palestinians didn't get the visa permit on time and one family member couldn't go 1 week and he had to wait for another week. They would threaten us with public with PR campaigns and taking it further. And now they're saying nothing when hundreds of hostages are not seeing their families, not getting access to medicine, being raped, attacked. We know all those terrible things, but they're saying nothing. And that's what really shocking to me.
You mean the organizations within Israel that are on your case for making the Red Cross exactly. and these third parties that are trying to enforce this humanitarian when it goes one way, but not the other way?
Yeah.
What do you think that is? Where do you think that comes from?
That Israel is definitely held to a different standard. We know that. We should be. I mean, we are a democracy, but we should be held to a different standards than Hamas. But I think it's a different standard to any Western democracy. I mean, look at how long did it take America to find Osama bin Laden? It took them over 10 years. And in a matter of few months, we're already getting pressure to finish the operation, to eliminate Sinwar. Why didn't you get Sinwar? But we got so many other Hamas leaders, but no one is talking about that either. It's as if Israel is just killing everyday civilians when it's actually attacking Hamas terrorists.
I love how all these podcast hosts and commentators have suddenly become experts on military tactics. Like the way they talk about these things, they shouldn't be doing it this way. And it's like, you can not like the optics of war, you can find it off-putting, but for you to suggest who you've never seen combat, like that you know how to do this. It's like, by comparison, you watch sports commentators talk about how people should play the game. They don't know how the game is played, but the stakes are so much higher in war, and you don't know how to execute a war, and they have it with such authority.
Yeah, before the ground operation, all like Sagar and Jetty was very much like Israel has no idea what they're getting into, and I'm like maybe they do. They've been doing it for 75 years. Yeah. Maybe they do.
So here's my question: you have this sort of perspective of actually what goes on the ground, and then you hear things about, the day after this war, and obviously, sane, good people agree Hamas is a problem. We have to get rid of Hamas. But I always have this issue with the whole free Gaza from Hamas. And once Hamas is gone, we'll be left with a freedom-loving population, an Israel-loving population ready for coexistence. And I know there's this temptation for good people in the West to want to isolate the problem to just the barbarians and savages who committed this. And if not for them, everybody else would be on board for peace. But then you see footage of people in the streets and mobs in the streets spitting on the carcasses of Jews who've been beaten. And you hear about statistics of 75% for Hamas in both Gaza and the West Bank. And then I hear your story that there's actually so much cooperation and exposure to how hard Israel works to facilitate good relations between it and its neighbors. So what's the give us your take on that. What's the truth there in terms of how the populations of the Palestinians actually feel about Israelis and Israel, especially at like the levels where they're working in partnership with them?
I think the core of this issue is that Palestinians have been fed this propaganda and lie that Jews are not native to this land, that Jews just came from Europe to take their land and we just want to kick them out. And they really believe it. And they think that the same way that the Jews have bombed the British Mandate back in the day and to get them out of our land, which we did, but it was our land, that they can do the same to us and we will just leave. But they fail to understand that we are the indigenous population. We have nowhere else to go. I can go back to where my mom or my dad are from, Iraq or in Tunisia. And I think that's the main problem that the world is feeding this narrative as well and saying, yes, that's true. Israelis all belong in Poland, never been to Poland. And this is where we need to go back to. But I mean, even those that lived in Poland lived there for a few hundred years and came back to where they came from. And by the way, those that came back to Poland after the Holocaust have been attacked and brutalized in the most horrific way. So
you think Jews are indigenous to Poland? Where do you think those people came from? It's insane.
Exactly.
Yeah.